The 12 Apostles of Jesus, the journey of martyrdom and unwavering faith. In the darkened night of an ancient world, when the light of hope seemed to have faded following the death of Jesus on the cross, a small group of men stood steadfast. They were not warriors bearing swords, nor rulers wielding unmatched power. They were simply humble fishermen, social outcasts, those whom society would least expect to change the world. But they were indeed these men, the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ, devoted witnesses of faith, who carried a divine mission from God. The death of Jesus was not the end of a story, but the beginning of a great journey that would span centuries, cross borders, and touch the farthest corners of the earth. These men, each with a unique life, wrote their story with blood, sweat, and tears. They bore not only the message of salvation, but also the role of pioneers, courageously facing persecution, swords, and tragic deaths. But how did 12 people, lacking political or military power, manage to build a movement so powerful that it changed the world? What drove them to defy danger, willing to face martyrdom? And how did their deaths become inspiring stories, echoing through thousands of years of history? This is the story of those who walked alongside Jesus, heard his words, and witnessed his miracles. More importantly, it is the story of those who lived and died for their faith, leaving behind a legacy that cannot be denied. From dangerous journeys across distant deserts to painful yet glorious deaths, the 12 apostles left their mark not only on the pages of the Bible, but also in the hearts of millions of believers worldwide. Let us delve into the lives of each apostle, uncovering their arduous journeys and the tragic deaths they faced. These stories will take us back to a chaotic time when courage, faith, and sacrifice helped shape the history of Christianity. And as the night falls, only the bright light of faith remains in the hearts of those brave enough to believe and act. During the turbulent era of the Roman Empire, a small group of men was chosen, not for power or knowledge, but for their loyalty and desire to understand the truth. These were the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ. Each came from different backgrounds with unique stories and journeys, yet all shared a common destiny: to become messengers of God's mission throughout the world. From ordinary fishermen and despised tax collectors to rebellious patriots, the 12 apostles symbolized diversity, yet they were bound together by faith and devotion to Jesus. They lived beside him, witnessed his miracles, heard his teachings, and finally, witnessed his sacrifice on the cross. But when Jesus left this world, their journey was only beginning. Their lives were not only a testament to their unwavering faith, but also a series of tragic, dramatic, and miraculous events that led to each one's death. Andrew, Peter's brother, was the first apostle to follow Jesus. Throughout his life, Andrew tirelessly spread the message of Jesus from Judea to Greece and beyond. Although he isn't as frequently mentioned in the Bible compared to other apostles, his loyalty and determination stand as an example to all disciples of Christ. According to tradition, Andrew was martyred in Patras, Greece, by crucifixion on an X-shaped cross, known as St. Andrew's Cross. Like his brother Peter, Andrew believed he was unworthy to die in the same manner as Jesus, so he requested a different form of crucifixion. He hung on the cross for 3 days, during which he continued to preach to those around him. Despite the pain and being left to die, Andrew continued his work until his last breath. His death stands as a testament to the strength of his faith and perseverance, living and dying for the mission of spreading God's word. Philip, one of the lesser-known apostles in the Bible, is noted for his loyalty and tireless service. Born in Bethsaida, like Peter and Andrew, Philip followed Jesus from the beginning. He was the one who introduced Nathanael to Jesus and consistently displayed devotion as a disciple. During his ministry, Philip faced numerous trials. One memorable story recounts how Jesus challenged him to find a way to feed 5,000 people with only a few loaves and fish. Like other apostles, Philip dedicated much of his life to spreading the message of Jesus, but he also met fierce opposition. Ultimately, Philip was martyred in Hierapolis, Phrygia, where he was crucified upside down. According to tradition, before his death, he preached to a crowd of pagans about Jesus, and after he passed, many of them converted. Philip's death marked the end of a life of service, but also the beginning of a new faith journey for those he touched. Bartholomew is one of the least mentioned apostles in the Bible. He lacks prominent stories, but his life and death are marked by details of profound tragedy and bloodshed. Some believe Bartholomew was Nathanael, the one Philip introduced to Jesus. Though little is known of him, Bartholomew devoted his life to spreading the gospel to faraway lands. Tradition holds that Bartholomew was martyred in Armenia, where he was skinned alive and then beheaded. His gruesome death is considered one of the most brutal among the apostles. Ancient artwork often depicts Bartholomew holding a knife, symbolizing the way he was tortured before his death. Despite enduring unimaginable pain, Bartholomew never abandoned his faith. His death stands as a testament to his courage and unwavering commitment to Christ. Thomas, often called Doubting Thomas, is famous for his skepticism regarding the resurrection of Jesus. When he heard that Jesus had risen, Thomas refused to believe unless he could touch the wounds on Jesus' body. When Jesus appeared before him and allowed him to touch the wounds, Thomas believed and exclaimed, "My Lord and my God." Although he initially doubted, Thomas later became one of the most powerful advocates of Jesus' message. According to tradition, Thomas traveled to India to preach and was martyred there, killed by a spear. His death marked the end of a journey filled with doubt and faith, and he is remembered as one who brought the light of Christ to the most distant lands. Matthew, also known as Levi, was a tax collector before he followed Jesus. At that time, tax collectors were despised because they were often seen as corrupt and exploitative, but when Jesus called Matthew, he left his profession and became one of his most faithful disciples. Matthew is credited with writing the first gospel, bearing his name, and dedicated much of his life to teaching Jesus' teachings. Tradition says that Matthew was martyred in Ethiopia or Parthia, where he was killed by either a spear or a sword. Despite his past, Matthew became a significant figure in Christian history, and his death is a testament to transformation and loyalty to Jesus. Simon, also known as Peter, was the leader among the apostles. A fisherman from Galilee, Simon was unremarkable except for his impulsive nature and unwavering loyalty. When Jesus called him Peter, meaning rock, he saw within Simon an inner strength, a foundation for his church. But that strength was not physical or intellectual, it was his courage and faith. After Jesus' resurrection and ascension, Peter became the leader of the early church, facing countless challenges and dangers. Although he performed many miracles and preached in many places, he was haunted by the memory of denying Jesus 3 times. According to tradition, when Peter was captured in Rome, he was sentenced to death by crucifixion. In his final moments, he requested to be crucified upside down, believing he was unworthy to die in the same manner as Jesus. Peter's death was not merely an end, but a symbol of unwavering faith in salvation and the promise of eternal life. James, son of Zebedee, often called James the Greater to distinguish him from another James in the Apostles' group, was a man of fervor and courage. Along with his brother John, Jesus called James son of thunder due to his fiery nature and occasional impulsiveness. James fearlessly defended his faith, which ultimately led to his tragic fate. He was the first apostle to be martyred for his faith in Jesus. In the early days of the church, King Herod had James executed by the sword, a death that shocked and devastated the Christian community, but also served as a powerful source of encouragement to those who continued Jesus' mission. James stood firm in his faith until his final moments, and his death remains a testimony to absolute loyalty. John, the brother of James, is known as the disciple whom Jesus loved. Throughout his time following Jesus, John was always close to him, from the Last Supper to standing beneath the cross as Jesus sacrificed himself. As one of the youngest disciples, John may have lived longer than the others, but his life was still filled with trials and challenges. Unlike the other apostles, John did not die by martyrdom. After being exiled to the island of Patmos, where he wrote the book of Revelation, John returned and spent the rest of his life in solitude. According to tradition, his enemies attempted to kill him by boiling him in oil, yet he miraculously survived. Although he did not face a violent death, John's life was still a journey of faith and sacrifice. He was the last apostle to remain alive, and his teachings continued to inspire the church after his passing. James, son of Alphaeus, often called James the Lesser to distinguish him from James, the son of Zebedee, known as James the Greater, is one of the lesser documented apostles. Although there is little recorded about his life and work, tradition tells us that James was a man of unwavering faith who endured many hardships in his journey following Jesus. James's life remains somewhat of a mystery to many, but his death was reportedly filled with profound suffering and tragedy. According to tradition, James was stoned to death in Jerusalem because he refused to renounce his faith in Jesus. Other sources claim he was crucified in Egypt during a missionary journey. Regardless of the circumstances, James died as a martyr, and the silence surrounding his life does not overshadow his sacrifice for his faith. Jude, also known as Thaddeus, was an apostle known for his dedication to teaching faith and loyalty to Jesus. He provided hope to those struggling with doubt and stood as a protector for the weak and a source of encouragement for believers. According to tradition, Jude was martyred alongside Simon the Zealot in Beirut, then part of the Roman province of Syria, around 65 AD. Some accounts suggest that both men were either beheaded or beaten to death. The martyrdom of Jude and Simon symbolizes brotherhood and courage in defending God's mission. After his death, Jude's remains were reportedly moved to Rome and buried in the crypt of St. Peter's Basilica, where he is still honored to this day. Simon the Zealot, true to his nickname, was an apostle with fiery zeal and deep love for the laws of Moses. Before following Jesus, Simon may have been a member of a Jewish zealot group who fought against Roman rule and longed for Israel's restoration. However, after meeting Jesus, Simon left behind his political struggles to join a spiritual mission, becoming a tireless preacher of the faith. Though little is recorded about his life in the Bible, tradition states that Simon was martyred in Persia, modern-day Iran, alongside Jude. Both suffered violent deaths for refusing to abandon their faith in Jesus. Simon the Zealot, who once fought for his nation's freedom, ultimately devoted his life to spiritual freedom and the truth of Jesus. His death serves as a reminder of the powerful transformation that occurs when one is touched by divine love and redemption. Judas Iscariot, whose name has become synonymous with betrayal, was one of the 12 apostles, but he is most remembered for betraying Jesus. Despite spending 3 years with Jesus and witnessing all his miracles and teachings, Judas succumbed to greed and the temptations of Satan. He agreed to betray Jesus to the Jewish high priests for 30 pieces of silver, the price of betrayal. After his betrayal, Judas was overwhelmed with remorse, but instead of seeking forgiveness, he chose a path of self-destruction. According to the Gospel of Matthew, Judas threw the money back to the priests and then hanged himself, unable to bear the guilt of his actions. The Book of Acts describes his death differently, stating that he fell in a field and his body burst open. Either way, Judas could not find redemption for himself, and his death remains a tragic conclusion to a life that once had the potential for greatness. The 12 apostles of Jesus were not merely his followers, but individuals who endured countless hardships, trials, and death for a noble mission. Each of them, from the brave Peter to the traitorous Judas, had their own story, a journey filled with emotion that led to their deaths. But these sacrifices built the foundation for the Christian church, spreading the message of Jesus' love and salvation to the ends of the earth. They lived and died for their faith, leaving behind an indelible legacy in the hearts of millions of Christians worldwide. Throughout his life, Peter consistently maintained his role as the spiritual leader of the apostles and the early church. After Jesus' resurrection and ascension, Peter devoted himself entirely to preaching and strengthening the faith of the believers. His inspiring sermons led thousands to convert, and he never faltered under pressure from Roman authorities or opponents. Peter endured numerous arrests, tortures, and threats to his life, yet his faith remained unshaken. His life was marked by both triumphs and hardships. Though he once denied Jesus 3 times, Peter sought to atone for that mistake through tireless service to Jesus' mission. Leaving behind his quiet life in Galilee, Peter traveled to distant cities like Antioch, Rome, and more, solely to spread the message of Christ. His journey culminated in Rome, where he faced execution. According to tradition, when brought to his place of execution, Peter requested to be crucified upside down, as he felt unworthy to die in the same way as Jesus. His courage and humility in his final moments have moved the hearts of millions of believers over the centuries. Even after his death, Peter's name has been remembered as the rock upon which Jesus built his church. Peter's death was not just one man's sacrifice, but a symbol of strength, loyalty, and unshakable faith. After Peter's martyrdom, Andrew, his brother, continued his tireless mission of spreading the message of salvation. With humility and passion, Andrew journeyed across lands from Scythia to Greece and the Black Sea, ceaselessly proclaiming the message of Jesus. Unlike Peter, Andrew is not mentioned as often in records, yet his journey was crucial to the spread of Christianity in the ancient world. Tradition tells us that Andrew performed numerous miracles during his missionary journeys, including healing the sick and even raising the dead. He was not just a preacher, but also a compassionate caregiver, helping those who were poor and forgotten. Though Andrew's life was quiet, it was full of love and kindness. He traveled to unfamiliar lands, facing dangers and threats, but he never abandoned his faith. Finally, in the city of Patras in Greece, Andrew met his fate. He was arrested and sentenced to death by crucifixion on an X-shaped cross. Hanging on the cross for 3 days, Andrew did not pray for release, but continued preaching about Jesus, even in his final, painful moments. His last words touched the hearts of many, and after his death, several of those who heard him converted, carrying on his legacy. Bartholomew, one of the lesser-mentioned apostles in the Bible, is remembered for his tragic death. He spent years spreading the gospel in remote regions like Armenia and India, bringing the light of Jesus to those who had never heard it. His life was marked not only by the victories of teaching, but also by a journey filled with suffering and trials. According to tradition, Bartholomew was captured in Armenia and subjected to one of the most brutal executions in Christian history. He was skinned alive and then beheaded. Despite enduring unimaginable pain, Bartholomew never abandoned his faith. His death became a symbol of steadfast faith and absolute loyalty to Jesus. Ancient artworks often depict Bartholomew with a knife and his flayed skin, serving as a reminder of his boundless sacrifice. Although his life might not be well documented, Bartholomew's death has left an indelible mark on the hearts of Christians. He gave everything his life and body for God's mission. Thomas, also known as Doubting Thomas, is famous for his journey from doubt to unwavering faith. When Jesus rose, Thomas refused to believe until he saw and touched Jesus' wounds. But when Jesus appeared before him, Thomas knelt and exclaimed, "My Lord and my God." Thomas's initial doubt did not diminish his later loyalty. He became one of the greatest missionaries, bringing Christianity to distant lands like India. According to tradition, Thomas traveled to southern India, where he established some of the first Christian communities. Despite facing numerous challenges and dangers, his passion and profound faith carried him through. Thomas ultimately met martyrdom in Mylapore, India, where he was killed with a spear by enemies of the faith. His death was not just the end of a devoted life, but a testament to the journey from doubt to absolute belief. Thomas, who once doubted the resurrection, died for his faith in Jesus, leaving behind a legacy of the power of inner transformation. Matthew, before becoming an apostle, was a tax collector, a profession despised by Jewish society, as tax collectors were often corrupt and exploitative. Yet, when Jesus called Matthew, he showed that his mission was not only for the righteous, but also for the lost and the socially rejected. The transformation in Matthew's life is a clear testament to Jesus' power to forgive and bring change to anyone. After becoming a devoted disciple, Matthew wrote the first gospel in the New Testament, named after him. This book not only serves as an essential document for spreading Christianity, but also as a powerful tool in preserving Jesus' teachings and miracles. With a strong educational background and deep understanding of Jewish law, Matthew dedicated his life to teaching and spreading the Word of God. Tradition states that Matthew was martyred in Ethiopia or Parthia, where he was killed for his fervor in teaching. Some stories suggest he was stabbed by a sword, while others say he was stoned or burned. Regardless, Matthew's sacrifice represents his transformation from a despised tax collector to a respected missionary and faithful witness of Jesus. This book not only serves as an essential document for spreading Christianity, but also as a powerful tool in preserving Jesus' teachings and miracles. With a strong educational background and a deep understanding of Jewish law, Matthew dedicated his life to teaching and spreading the Word of God. Tradition says that Matthew was martyred in Ethiopia or Parthia, where he was killed because of his zeal for teaching. Some stories suggest he was stabbed by a sword, while others say he was stoned or burned. Regardless, Matthew's sacrifice represents his transformation from a despised tax collector to a respected missionary and faithful witness of Jesus. James, son of Alphaeus, often called James the Lesser to distinguish him from James, the son of Zebedee, known as James the Greater, is one of the less mentioned apostles. Although his life and work were not recorded in much detail, James the Lesser remains an important figure in the early Christian church. With humility and silence, he helped build the first Christian community and spread the faith to the poor. According to tradition, James was martyred either in Egypt or Jerusalem, where he was stoned to death. Some sources say he was crucified like many other apostles. His death symbolizes a quiet but great sacrifice, proving his unwavering loyalty to the mission Jesus entrusted to him. Jude, also known as Thaddeus, is one of the lesser-known apostles in the Bible, but he played an important role in bringing hope to the poor and oppressed. With courage and compassion, Jude traveled to many places spreading the message of Jesus, encouraging those facing difficulties and challenges in life. Tradition says that Jude was martyred alongside Simon the Zealot in Beirut around AD 65. Both were brutally executed for refusing to abandon their faith. Their martyrdom not only marked the end of their lives, but also symbolized unity and loyalty between those who followed Jesus. Jude is seen as a symbol of hope, and his name continues to be honored by Christians worldwide. Simon the Zealot, true to his name, was a man of burning zeal, but that zeal was no longer directed toward political rebellion against Rome, as it might have been before, but towards protecting and spreading the faith in Jesus Christ. Before following Jesus, Simon might have been a member of the Jewish zealot group who were willing to sacrifice their lives to restore Israel's kingdom. However, after encountering Jesus, Simon redirected his passion to become a spiritual warrior, fighting for salvation and the truth. Tradition says that Simon was martyred alongside Jude in Beirut during a Roman persecution. His death is a testament to his courage and determination, a man who once fought for political ideals but ultimately sacrificed his life for spiritual ideals. Even in the face of oppression and torment, Simon never abandoned his faith in Jesus, and his death symbolizes the power of loyalty. Among the 12 apostles, none is more controversial and tragic than Judas Iscariot. He was the one who lived alongside Jesus for 3 years, witnessing his miracles and teachings, yet in the end, betrayed him for 30 pieces of silver. The name Judas has long been synonymous with betrayal, but his story is also a warning about the power of greed and the weakness of human nature. After betraying Jesus, Judas felt remorse, but instead of seeking forgiveness, he chose a path of self-destruction. According to the Gospel of Matthew, Judas threw back the money he received from the priests and then hanged himself. In the Acts of the Apostles, his death is described differently, stating that he fell in a field and his body burst open. Either way, Judas did not find redemption for himself, and his death is a tragic end to a life that once had the potential to become great. Looking back at the arduous journey of the 12 apostles, we don't just see ordinary men, but enduring symbols of courage, loyalty, and unshakable faith. They lived, loved, and died with an unyielding belief in the mission that Jesus entrusted to them. From bustling markets to foreign cities, from cruel emperors to impoverished people, they tirelessly spread the message of love, forgiveness, and salvation. The lives of the apostles were filled with blood and tears, but they also became a guiding light for millions after them. They did not seek glory, nor did they expect worldly rewards, yet their sacrifices laid the foundation for the Christian church, allowing the faith to reach the ends of the earth. These stories remind us that sacrifice is never meaningless and that every small action we take can leave a great impact. The apostles did not fear facing death, and their resilience continues to inspire us today to live with faith, hope, and love. But this is not the end of the journey. There are still many stories from the Bible, mysteries yet to be unraveled, and truths about historical figures and miraculous events that we will continue to bring to you in future episodes. Join us as we continue to explore and delve deeper into the figures and events that shaped the history of Christianity. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any videos. Share your thoughts about today's story in the comments. Which apostle's story impressed you the most? And don't forget to share this video with your friends so we can spread these inspiring stories to even more people. The journey of the 12 apostles has come to an end, but our journey has just begun. Let's continue to explore more amazing stories as we continue to bring you exciting content from the Bible and Christian history. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next episodes.